It is now night in the Ephraim Hill country, and the air is shaking with rumors of terror. Families gather in silence in the valley below, while distant thunder from iron chariots reverberates. For 20 long years, Israel has been wallowing in oppression. A woman named Deborah closes her eyes in fervent prayer beneath the fronds of a lone palm tree perched high on a ridge. The faces of those gathered around her feet sparkle with tears. A mother cradles her famished child. An elderly man raises his shaking hands in supplication. Deborah's eyes are fierce, but her heart is broken with theirs. She hears a deeper voice on the wind, not just the cries of despair.
Arise.
The word echoes like distant thunder in her soul. Deborah takes a deep breath, feeling the call of God. As though heaven itself is waiting for her response, the night holds its breath as a pale dawn descends upon Israel. The oppressed landscape is exposed. A line of exhausted villagers has formed beneath Deborah's palm tree. Sisera's soldiers raided his fields during harvest, stealing grain and hope, according to a farmer with a fresh wound across his face. A young woman describes loved ones being dragged off in chains while fighting back tears. Deborah experiences every pain as though it were her own, and every story is a new cut. Her voice is steady as a balm, and she speaks softly to each supplicant. She uses fabric torn from her own garment to bandage the farmer's wound. Whispering assurances of God's justice, she holds the sobbing woman in her arms. But righteous rage simmers beneath Deborah's compassion. She sees the banners of King Jabin's general, Sisera, and the fortress of King Jabin in Hazor as her gaze rises above the shade of the palm toward the far north. Jabin's iron chariots have tramped Israel for 20 years, but this is the last. Deborah still carries the heavenly whisper of the night. Rise. She understands she was not dreaming. Deborah straightens her shoulders and gets up. Her small frame radiates power at once. As though sensing a shift in the atmosphere, the villagers become quiet. With a voice as clear as a trumpet in the morning light, she commands an assistant.
Bring me Barak, son of Abinoam.
Others exchange doubtful looks. Barak is a brave warrior from far-off Kadesh, but what could he do against Sisera's power? Deborah gives no explanation yet, just a distant glance, as though she is already imagining battle strategies that the Almighty has outlined.
The Lord God of Israel is stirring,
she whispers, her eyes gleaming with faith. The palm fronds rustle around her, seemingly in unison with the wind. Long dormant, hope flickers in people's faces. Deborah's heart thuds with determination. She senses heaven's plan developing inside of her, and help is on the way. Israel's judge looks toward the horizon in the silence of that morning. Deborah is prepared to ride the lightning of the impending storm. As a messenger rushes north to call for Barak, the first drops of fate start to fall. Barak shows up beneath Deborah's palm, his face marked with interest and worry. Deborah gestures for the seasoned warrior to stand up, but he bows respectfully.
The Lord God of Israel commands you, take 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun,
she says without introduction, delivering the message that is burning in her heart. Saying,
march to Mount Tabor.
Every word in her powerful voice is a conviction's arrow.
God will bring Jabin's awful general Sisera and all of his charnies there by the Kishon River and give them to you.
Barak's eyes go bigger. While he had heard stories of Deborah's prophecies, this is a call to action against a strong enemy. He turns north, where dark clouds gather apparently in unison. His heart throbs in his chest. He breaks the quiet and says,
"If you will accompany me, Deborah, I will go. But if not, I cannot do this."
Deborah looks at the warrior. She sees the weight of responsibility he feels in that moment rather than cowardice. He is aware that her presence represents God's favor. She nods slightly. She puts a gentle hand on his shoulder and says,
"I will definitely accompany you."
Her tone changes to one of prophecy as she says,
"But understand this, Barak. The path you are following will not bring you fame."
Barak looks at her, his brow knitted in bewilderment. Deborah goes on,
"Because the Lord will give Sisera to a woman."
Female. Barak questions if Deborah herself will take down Sisera. Deborah is already acting deliberately as he opens his mouth to inquire. She commands,
"Assemble your men at Tabor."
saying,
"I will gather the tribes."
Barak straightens, resolves, replaces uncertainty with trust. He confirms,
"As you say, I will do it."
By evening, messengers are dispatched to the hills of Zebulun and the highlands of Naphtali. As the call to arms spreads, fires illuminate the horizon. At dawn, Israel is preparing for combat. An urgent messenger kneels before General Sisera in a torchlit hall far to the north. He stutters,
"My lord, the Israelites, they gather an army on Mount Tabor."
Sisera's steel-clad hand holds onto his sword's hilt. His scarred face breaks into a slow smile. He growls,
"So they dare rise."
"Get the 900 iron chariots ready." Outside, lightning forks across the sky, illuminating the darkness, a sign of the impending storm. We ride to crush them at first light. As Sisera's army pours into the Jezreel Valley, the ground trembles. The iron chariots are what make everyone shudder, even as thousands of Canaanite foot soldiers advance in close columns. Like impending thunder, 900 war chariots rumble, each one a thundering beast of metal and wood, its wheels rimmed with vicious blades. General Sisera rides high at their head, his armor gleaming in the blood-red sky. He is grimly eager to put an end to Israel's uprising with a single, crushing blow. Barak and Deborah observe the enemy's approach from the slopes of Mount Tabor. The Israelite volunteers, farmers, shepherds, and ordinary people who suddenly became soldiers are gathered around them, their eyes widening at the dust cloud and the sound of Sisera's horde. They clutch spears and slings. Some young men swallow hard, clutching their weapons to keep from shaking, while others mutter prayers. They had never encountered such a vast and formidable foe. Deborah takes a step forward, sensing a lack of courage. She lifts her hand as the sun sets, encircling her silhouette with a halo of fire.
"Israeli men."
Her voice is bold and clear. The whispers stop.
"Don't be afraid of the crowd in front of you. Remember that we will prevail by the Spirit of the Lord, not by strength or force."
Her eyes are bright with unwavering faith. She tells the old tales of how the walls of Jericho fell with a shout and how the Red Sea engulfed Pharaoh's chariots. Every word serves as a lifeline, rescuing her people from the brink of despair. Barak moves between the ranks, nodding confidently and clasping shoulders. Deborah's composure gives him strength, even though his heart is racing. He arranges the men to benefit from height on the mountain's summit. As twilight deepens, campfires in Sisera's expansive camp below come to life. As the dawn approaches, the sound of the enemy drums serves as a constant reminder of the danger that lies ahead. That evening, as the cool air hums with tension, Barak and Deborah meet under the stars. Barak looks at Deborah as he tightens the straps of his armor. He quietly acknowledges,
They are so many.
expressing what they both know. Deborah closes her eyes and prays into the night air. Barak hears it in the ensuing silence, a slight rumble from the sky, but there are no clouds to be seen. Deborah's eyes open, and a calm smile appears on her face. With unwavering conviction, she murmurs,
The Lord has gone ahead of us.
Midnight. With the assurance that their target is stranded on the mountain, Sisera's soldiers frolic by the firelight on one side of the plain. Israelite soldiers, on the other hand, gather in fervent prayer and parting embraces. Deborah moves among them, inspiring hope and blessings. As though assembling their own celestial armies, the stars above appear to be burning brighter. An uncanny silence descends by the darkest hour before sunrise. Both camps sleep restlessly. Deborah is still awake atop Tabor, staring off into the distance. A voice seems to say inaudibly, Tomorrow. With a firm heart, she holds onto her staff. Ash swirls upward as one of Sisera's campfires is extinguished below by a chilly wind. The Holy One prepares his ambush. The scene is set. As night falls, Deborah gets up and whispers to Barak,
It's time.
The air is charged with electricity as the first light appears. No one can predict the wonders that will come with dawn, and the fight for Israel's independence is about to break out. As Deborah and Barak lead their forces down the slope of Mount Tabor, gray light permeates the sky. The cool morning air carries breath. Confident and yelling, Sisera's soldiers are forming battle lines along the Kishon River below. The slight smell of rain moves with the wind. Deborah gives a silent signal by raising her hand high.
For the Lord and for Israel. Barak roars as he draws his sword.
10,000 Israelites charge down the hillside like a human wave. With a loud clang of steel, they slam into the Canaanite lines. Chaos breaks out in the valley. The enemy is taken aback by how fiercely Barak's foot soldiers attack as they hack and thrust. Unprepared for Israel to launch the initial attack, a few of Sisera's men recoil. Sisera, however, is an experienced combatant. When he yells commands, the orderly Canaanite charioteers obey precisely. Israelite ranks are soon being dispersed everywhere as the iron chariots tear through the battlefield. When Deborah witnesses her warriors faltering under the assault, her stomach clenches. With her eyes blazing, Deborah lifts her arms to the sky amid the chaos.
Get up, Lord!
She yells, her voice rising above the din. The sky responds at that precise moment. The heavens are split open by a sudden clap of thunder. Suddenly, a torrent of rain erupts, soaking the fighters. Within minutes, the arid Kishon riverbed turns into a torrent, leaving Sisera speechless. Panicked by lightning and torrential rain, horses charge forward. With their wheels stuck in rapidly solidifying mud, the arrogant iron chariots come to a grinding stop.
Now, Barak! Now!
Deborah, water pouring down her face, shouts joyfully from the hillside. At this clear indication of divine assistance, the Israelites are overcome with renewed courage. They roar forward in unison. The deeper the mud, the more Canaanite soldiers slip and flounder. Israel's fighters arrive upon them driven by righteous fury. Once a certain loss becomes an unexpected thumping. Every man in Sisera's once invasion army either runs away or falls where he is standing as the army collapses. Many Canaanites are either cut down or carried away by the rushing waves as they try to flee. Barak takes the initiative and fights fearlessly. As his proud army crumbles, General Sisera looks on in horror. His powerful chariots are stuck in mud and useless. His heart is wrapped in a chilly coil of fear. We have lost this battle." Sisera drops his chariot and runs away, his jaw clenched. He disappears into the reeds, splattered with mud. Now a terrified fugitive, the great warlord flees for his life. The final Canaanite resistance disintegrates back on the battlefield. Israel's ranks erupt in triumphant cheers. After muttering a prayer of gratitude, Deborah swiftly looks over the destruction. There is no sign of Sisera. Breathless, Barak rushes to Deborah. With annoyance and excitement in his voice, he declares,
"Sisera has escaped."
Deborah's eyes flash.
Go, she orders. Go after him. God's promise will not be broken.
Barak immediately assembles a small group of men and begins to wade across the flooded plain in pursuit. Sisera runs through the wet woods by herself. He throws off his armor piece by piece to run faster, since it makes him heavier. Every twig that breaks sets his heart leaping into his throat. He keeps ahead, tired and bleeding. Sisera looks across the rain and sees a group of tents tucked away under a big oak as his strength fades. A well-known banner, the emblem of King Jabin's ally Hazor the Kenite, flutters at the camp's brink. Hope shines in Sisera's chest. Out of the largest tent, a figure alerted by his approach emerges. Wearing a shawl to shield from the rain is a woman. She moves forward and gives him a gentle beckon. Sisera almost passes out in relief. He stumbles toward her open tent, thinking, safety at last. Although he is not yet aware of her name, this woman, Jael, Hazor's wife, will permanently alter his destiny. Shivering and soaked, Sisera stumbles into the Kenite campsite. He is so tired that his vision becomes blurry. Jael, a strong woman with alert eyes, leads him carefully into her tent in front of him. The inside smells of wool and wood smoke, and it is dark and warm. Lantern light wanders across woven rugs as she eases the quivering general onto a blanket. Jael understands exactly who her guest is. Now seated in her tent unguarded, the defeated Canaanite warlord must have had fast-spread news of the battle on the winds. She tries to smile calmly despite her racing heart. She should protect Sisera, since she and her husband Hazor have a peace agreement with King Jabin. But she feels a deeper stirring inside. This man is a murderer of innocent people and the bane of Israel. Given the harm he has caused, can she really give him sanctuary? She is startled out of her reverie by Sisera's moans. He collapses back and screams,
"Water, please."
Jael's movements are graceful and well-practiced. She pours a big bowl of rich, cool, and soothing goat's milk in place of water. She applies it to Sisera's chapped lips. He eagerly gulps. His eyelids start to sag from the warm milk and fatigue. Jael gently drapes a thick quilt over him.
Sleep, my lord.
She murmurs.
This is a safe place for you.
With a flash of panic in his eyes, Sisera tries to support himself. His voice is hardly audible above a whisper as he gasps,
"Stand at the door. If someone approaches and requests me, say there is no one."
He clings to her wrist pleadingly. Jael pushes him gently back down. She softly says,
Rest, my lord.
"Nobody will discover you here." Sisera lets out a breath, caves into tiredness, closes his eyes as milk and weariness overwhelm him. Now the rain stops outside. Jael is the only one who can choose how to treat this nasty man while her husband Hazor is abroad. Distinctive war horns can be heard as Barak's men look for survivors. Jael's pulse picks speed. Should they come upon Sisera here, sheltered under her, what will happen? She kneels next to Sisera, who is already losing consciousness. Her thoughts are racing. She has heard Israel's cries for a long time, and may have even secretly prayed to their God. The Almighty has now given her this oppressor. Jael rises softly. The only sounds are the patter of water dripping from the tent roof and Sisera's labored breathing. In the corner, she notices a long iron tent peg and the mallet that was used to drive it. Yes, they are homemaker tools, but tonight they are also tools of justice. Jael reaches for the peg and mallet, her hands steady in spite of her racing heart. She slowly makes her way back to Sisera's bedside, where he sleeps unaware of his impending doom. As she places the peg's tip above his temple, directly over his pulse, beads of perspiration form on her forehead. Sisera stirs slightly but does not awaken. Jael silently asks the God of Israel for courage and determination. Jael holds her breath and raises the hammer high. As she stands between justice and mercy, heaven and earth, time seems to stop. The prophecy given to Deborah reverberates in the quiet of this suspended moment. A woman will declare victory. Jael's hold becomes more firm. She is aware of her obligations. As Jael slowly lets out a breath, the first rays of sunlight peek through the tent's flap. She dropped the mallet from her shaking hands. Sisera lies motionless in front of her, the iron peg pierced through his temple and into the ground. The rug under his head is darkened by blood. Even in death, the powerful general's eyes seem unable to process his defeat as they gaze blankly at the ceiling. With shock and adrenaline pumping through her veins, Jael takes a step back. The world is completely silent for a long time. She's done it. Sisera has passed away. Like a crashing wave, the realization sweeps over her. Her chest rises with a turbulent mixture of horror and triumph rather than just one. She closes her mouth and straightens herself. Outside in the damp dawn, birds begin to sing gingerly. After raising the tent flap, Jael slides outdoors. Though her face is flushed, the air feels clean and cool. She looks over the horizon knowing Barak's troops will be close. She wipes the perspiration and a few tears from her cheeks, her heart still thumping. She braces herself and shouts clearly across the campsite.
Barak, son of Abinoam.
In this manner, a few moments later, Barak emerges from the trees, exhausted and covered in mud, accompanied by a few warriors. Barak slows when he sees Jael standing in front of the tent with his hands folded peacefully. Uncertainty flickers in his eyes as he is aware of Hazor the Kenite's neutrality. Jael nods confidently, calling him closer. She says firmly,
"Come, my lord. I'll show you the man you're seeking."
With his hand on the hilt of his sword, Barak approaches cautiously. Jael gestures inside while raising the tent flap wider. Sisera is lying still on the ground, the graphic proof of Jael's crime clearly visible. Barak's throat tightens with breath. Gazing in amazement at the fallen foe he had so valiantly pursued, he enters the tent. With wide eyes, Barak lowers his sword and murmurs, "By the Lord." He is filled with awe as he remembers Deborah's prophecy.
The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman.
The proof is right in front of him. Barak slowly shifts his attention to the woman who succeeded where he failed. He bows down in reverence. With a respectful tone, he declares,
Grateful to the God of Israel, and blessed are you, Jael, among women today.
Unaware that she was holding her breath, Jael lets it out. Some of Barak's men cross themselves or say prayers in shock at what they see inside the tent as they exchange stunned looks. The dreaded oppressor has vanished, vanquished by the valiant deed of a single woman rather than by a sword or spear. As the sun rises higher, Its rays shine on that modest tent in the middle of nowhere, a sign of a startling power shift. Barak gets up and gives Jael a thank you hand. She accepts it, and their gazes briefly lock in a silent recognition of the divine justice that has been done. Barak gestures to his men without saying another word. As a somber memento and proof of Sisera's death, one of them seizes his blood-stained spear. Now is the moment to share the news. As Barak and his warriors quickly leave to rejoin the Israelite forces, Jael stands at the entrance of her tent. She maintains her poise until they are no longer visible. Only then, overcome by what has happened, does she fall to her knees. She wipes a smear of blood from her skirt with shaking fingers. One repentant and relieved tear drops to the floor. Her voice is tremulous but earnest as she whispers,
"Thank you, Lord."
Barak's horn blares in the distance, alerting everyone to Sisera's passing. Canaanite terror's long night is coming to an end. However, even with the tyrant gone, there is still work to be done to ensure Israel's full independence. The final confrontation with King Jabin is still imminent. King Jabin sits on his throne in the fortified city of Hazor, his knuckles white around his scepter. The faint stench of burning incense to the Canaanite gods permeates the dim throne room. A trembling messenger kneels in front of him.
My lord, Sisera's army has vanished. Israel has won. And Sisera...
The man's eyes fall to the stone floor, unable to finish. Jabin feels his heart thumping in his ears. The king hisses, "Say it!"
Sisera is dead, slain, by a woman of the Canaanites,
the messenger says in a broken voice. Jabin's scepter falls out of his hand and clatters down the dais' steps. This isn't possible. Would 20 years of uncontested authority, supported by Sisera's power, be overturned in a day? Panic and rage battle inside him. He yells to his generals who are hiding at the edges of the hall,
"Rally the remaining soldiers. These rebels will be crushed by us."
However, an alarm bell is already ringing outside the palace walls. Through the arched window, Jabin can see people sprinting across the streets. Hazor is en route of the Israelite army. The news of Sisera's devastation infuriates Israel, and their troops are now encircling the Canaanite stronghold with moral fervor. Hazor's fate is set by dusk. With burning torches and unrelenting war cries, Barak's army encircles the city. Panic and despair swept through Jabin's people. The Israelites attack at dawn. Under a barrage of arrows, rams pound the city gates. Deborah leads the way, igniting the courage with her presence. The gates of Hazor break with a loud crack. Like a tide, Barak and his men come in. Canaanite defenders who are demoralized quickly give way. The streets of Hazor reverberate with sword fights as the Israelites crush opposition. When the idols of Baal and Asherah are turned upside down and crushed in the middle of the war, Canaan's false gods suffer a last blow. Amid the chaos, King Jabin flees under covering a secret tunnel beneath his palace. With 2 guards carrying a bag of treasure, he slips outside past the walls. But Barak stops them with his sword out in the olive grove across. Barak swiftly defeats Jabin's guards with an aesthetic charge. Whining for sympathy, the king collapses the ground, crown ajar. Barak above him. Declares he,
"You showed no mercy for 20 years, recalling the burning villages and the distraught orphans."
Jabin's cries fall flat. Barak kills Jabin with a single, mercifully quick blow. The oppressor has vanished. The final vestiges of Canaanite resistance disintegrate with Jabin's passing. Israel celebrates the victory of the war with a roaring cheer. With Barak by her side and tears of gratitude on her face, Deborah stands in the middle plaza of Hazor, surrounded by broken altars and smoldering ruins. For the first time in a generation, an oppressed people experience freedom in that sacred moment. Deborah silently asks God, who saved them, to keep Israel faithful. Deborah moves away from the throng to a peaceful hillside as the festivities intensify. After a prolonged period of darkness, the land is illuminated by golden light as the sun rises over the horizon. Although this battle is won, the larger story of her people is far from over, so she closes her eyes and waits for the next whisper of God's will. The air is filled with lively conversation and laughter beneath the shade of the palm of Deborah. People from all over the village have come together to celebrate, not out of fear or desperation as before. Israel's roads are safe once more, and kids are chasing one another along the open spaces where Sisera's chariots used to roam. With a satisfied smile on her lips, Deborah sits beneath her palm in her usual spot of judgment, listening to the villagers peacefully resolve minor conflicts. There are indications of new life all around her. Without fear, women take water from the well. Elders share the country's deliverance with wide-eyed young people. Every language has a narrative about how the Lord won using improbable heroes, a prophetess, a reluctant general, and a courageous woman living in a tent. Standing near silently, Barak is observing the assembly. His face shows the modest assurance of a man who has personally felt God's power. He is no more the insecure warrior. When their eyes lock, he and Deborah give each a respectful nod of appreciation. Not far away are a group of honored guests, Kenites. Among them is Jael, who refuses to accept the attention, but is nevertheless showered with presents from Israel's fields and flocks. They see her as a living example of divine justice, demonstrating that God can use anyone who submits to his will. Deborah holds up her hand for silence as afternoon light streams through the palm fronds. Even the wind stops as the crowd assembles in anticipation. Deborah's voice is firm but gentle as she calls out,
Hear me, people of Israel. We have peace and victory because of the Lord.
Shouts of agreement reverberate.
Let us never forget what he has done.
Deborah's dark eyes search the faces in front of her. Reunited families, resting warriors, and freed former slaves.
We lived in fear under oppression for years.
She adds, her voice ringing like a soft warning. God responded to our cries in ways we could never have predicted. The enemy was defeated by his hand, not by our power. Keep this in mind in the days ahead. A pensive silence descends. Some give somber nods, remembering the resentment of bondage that has now been replaced by freedom.
Do not return to the ways that brought us low.
Deborah says, her voice becoming softer and more like a plea carried on the wind. Get rid of the idols that have ensnared us. As the truth of her words sinks into their hearts, many people's eyes well up with tears.
Serve the Lord with all your heart, and it will go well with you.
At that precise moment, despite the clear sky, a low rumble of thunder emanates from beyond the mountains. Deborah listens inwardly as she tilts her head. A silence of divine caution sweeps across her soul. She's been on this journey long enough to understand her people's cycles. Only as long as they remain faithful will there be peace. New oppressors will undoubtedly emerge if they revert to evil. Deborah senses the significance of the distant roll of thunder, even though the crowd appears to be oblivious to it. It's a heavenly whisper to be alert. Deborah smiles and calls out to the village kids, who rush to her side in hopes of receiving a blessing. She puts her hands on their heads in the hopes that they will know the Lord, who saved Israel, as they grow up. The adults watch resolutely in order to impart this hard-won freedom to their children. Songs of praise reverberate over the hills as evening draws in. Deborah's soul is at peace as she hums softly. The shadow of oppression has finally disappeared, and the land is at peace, protected by the righteous. In Israel's history, the time under Deborah's leadership stands out as a time of justice and revelation. Even so, she is aware that this victory is only one part of a much larger symphony. Deborah gives God the future of her people in a final hushed prayer, not knowing what hardships or deliverances the years ahead may bring. As the cycle of faith and deliverance repeats itself, a gentle breeze rises and carries her prayer into the twilight. Deborah's story has a timeless message that resonates with us even after millennia. It displays an unexpected triumph, with a fearless housewife and a modest prophetess defeating the power of oppression. What secret does this reveal to you today? It is this: God can overcome any darkness, whether it be one of injustice, personal fear, or a spiritual stronghold. God frequently reveals His glory through unlikely means and unexpected people. Now look at your own life. You might understand the weight of injustice or the desire for redemption, just like Israel did under Jabin's rule. The story of Deborah exhorts you to call out to God and to answer His call. God has placed you in a position to stand up for truth, engage in spiritual combat in prayer, and advocate for divine justice in a broken world. You may be the Deborah or Jael of your generation. Even now, hearts are being whispered to by the same God who told Deborah to arise. Arise. Will you pay attention? Will you bravely and with faith take the next step? By God's grace, you have a role to play in the last chapter that hasn't been written yet. Are you going to take His call? Like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more Bible stories coming your way.